get sued. Hi everyone, I just want to start by saying if you've ever felt burnt out, exhausted, brain fog, tired, then stick around because this is my story and I'm going to be sharing with you guys what it is that I've been through, why my physical health was on the decline and how that had a massive effect on my mental health. So this is my story. Grab a drink, grab a coffee, tea, whatever, strap yourself in because this is going to be a long, chuffing video. So let's go. I also want to say straight off the bat that this is not me giving out any medical advice, medical information, nothing like that. This is just my experience, what it is that I've gone through, my diagnosis, my symptoms, and then ultimately what I did to sort of pull myself out of the lowest point of my life. And if this will help anyone else out there, then yeah, that's literally all I can do. But yeah, this is not a medical advice video, that sort of thing. So, you know, I don't want to get sued. So let me go right to the start. December 2023, right the way through to January 2025. So as near as 3 months ago, because we're currently in April 2025. I hit a wall. I went crash, bang, wallop straight into that wall when it came to my physical and mental health, and both of them were just very on a natural decline for that whole period. The whole time there was lots of symptoms going on, which I'm going to discuss now, but the main overarching one that I've really struggled with was fatigue. And there's a difference between feeling tired and, oh, you know, I'm a bit tired, I could do with an extra night in bed, like, you know, an extra hour in bed, compared to fatigue. And fatigue is just on a different level. And the only way that I can sort of explain it, for me personally, like, this might sound a bit weird, but it was as if someone had got a steamroller and just flattened me out and I couldn't get up. There was just no energy, there was just nothing left in me, and I just couldn't function. And it was just fatigue, and for me that was the hardest thing that I've had to deal with throughout this whole period in my life. So in the run up to that, I was pushing hard in my career. So I run my own fashion brand, which is called Deaf Identity. So it's an online fashion brand and it raises deaf awareness through clothing and accessories, and I launched that in September 2019. So all the way through to September 2023, so that would have been, what is that, 4 years? Yeah, 4 years. And just over time, I was just sort of like chugging away, you know, just constantly going. And, you know, the highs that I had were great. But with that, you know, came the lows. And I think over time, I just found it harder to recover from a low period than I would normally. And it was definitely something that I thought, something's not quite right. So it got to October 2023, and it had been 6 weeks since my first slump, so to speak. So what really started all of this was I had a morning where I just couldn't get out of bed. And I know that sounds weird, and I know that sometimes we all struggle to get out of bed, but I couldn't get out. And I remember that day I had to go to Manchester because I was booked in for a photo shoot, and I had to cancel because I couldn't get out of bed. I just had no energy, and it was just like complete wipeout. So anyways, that was the start of it, September 2023. And then it got to midway through October 2023. And I thought, you know what, maybe I need to get checked out, because by this point, my symptoms were inflammation, swollen lymph nodes, yellowing of the skin, yellowing of the eyes. I had really bad throat. So basically, with the swollen lymph nodes, it looked like a sort of golf ball coming out of my neck. And every time I was clearing my throat, it just felt like sandpaper, and it was just really sore and really rough, no matter how much water I was drinking, you know, to try and soothe it, that kind of thing. I had no energy left in, you know, the tank, so to speak. And the overall one that I found really, really hard was the fatigue, which I've already mentioned about. And some other symptoms that I had as well was really bad stomach pains and really bad acid reflux, to the point where sometimes I would wake up at night and it would feel as if I was like drowning in acid. And I know that sounds really extreme, but unless you've gone through something like that, it's hard to describe to people that probably don't really know how that feels. But that's just pretty much all of my symptoms. So all of that started taking place, from September 2023. So I went to the doctors, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I was just basically dismissed and just sort of gaslit and just sort of said, oh, you'll be fine, sort of thing. And then it got to December. It was the second week of December. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm just going to bring it up because now looking back, I think it's a bit like humorous, but at the time it wasn't. But anyway, so I went to this second doctor. It was the second week of December, still 2023. And by this point, my symptoms started compounding, so they were getting worse because of how long it had gone on for. So by this point, it was 4 months, which is a quarter of the year, which I know in the grand scheme of things doesn't sound like a long time. But at that time, it felt like, oh my God, it's like never ending. And why am I just not getting better? So I went to the second doctor, explained the symptoms, and she basically turned to me and she said, oh, well, it is Christmas time and everyone's always stressed when they're buying Christmas presents. So just take care of yourself and don't beat yourself up too much. What? I thought my hearing aids were glitching. So basically, she was trying to dismiss and gaslight me by saying that all of my symptoms and everything was down to the fact that I was stressed buying Christmas presents. The only people I've got to buy Christmas presents for is my mum, dad and my sister, if she's chuffing lucky. But all my symptoms started in September 2023. That's 4 months. And, she was saying, oh, it's just down to me buying Christmas presents. That's why I'm stressed. Right. Anyway, moving on. With everything that was going on physically, this is when my mental health really started to deteriorate and I felt really, really low. And for me, I think it was just hard because over the course of this whole time, I'd seen 8 medical professionals and none of them were able to give me the sort of advice and things because they kept referring to blood tests and they were sort of looking, oh yeah, your bloods are fine. But I'm not fine, and it was really hard to sort of get my voice across and heard and things like that. So my mental health definitely took a massive hit whilst all of this was going on. And I think it just got to a point where I was like, what if this is just my new normal? What if how I'm feeling is just not getting old, but what if this is just like a new thing for me? Maybe I just have to get on with it and just start accepting it for what it is because everyone's telling me that I'm fine, but I know deep down that I'm just not. All of my symptoms and mental health all came to a major crash in August 2024 to the point where I sort of took a step back from social media. And I will never forget this. It's probably the lowest point throughout this whole thing. And I wrote like on my notes app and stuff that I was just ready to close Deaf Identity and that was going to be it. And even now, like thinking about it and talking about it, it's making me feel weird because I was just done. And I think my family and friends know that, I've gone through shit in my life and stuff like that, but I've always just got through it. And I've never sort of, let it get me down and things like that. But what I'm trying to say is this is how much it was affecting my whole life and everything. So, yeah, that was really, really hard. But it was only when a friend sort of mentioned to me that they'd had an appointment at this natural health place. So I thought, oh, do you know what? Let's just go for it. So I ended up booking an appointment with them so it was early September, so this was like just after the low point, and I feel like it was sort of the turning point for me. When people sort of go through life and they sort of say they can pinpoint defining moments and stuff, I think this is one of mine. So anyway, I booked this appointment. It was in September, but my appointment wasn't available until December. I was like, oh, chuffing out, because by this point it was 14 months, right? I'm not saying for the appointment, I'm on about the whole thing. So by this point, I've been really, really unwell for 14 months. So anyway, went to this place and it's called Ogden's Health, based in Harrogate. And I was very cautious about not sharing too much just because I didn't want to sort of preempt them. And with my experience with the NHS and, unfortunately it wasn't a great experience. I didn't want that to cloud what they could potentially say to me. So I just wanted to go in with a fresh mind. So anyway, they did a full screening. So anyway, I had the whole test. I was finally diagnosed with 2 different things. So I was diagnosed with acidosis and adrenal fatigue. Now, when I had those 2 diagnoses, I was actually too stunned to speak, because for the first time, I felt validated. In this whole period of my life, I felt validated, and I knew that there was something wrong. I just knew, because you all know your body inside and out, and you just know. And I just knew. So with the acidosis and with the adrenal fatigue, my body was just literally so acidic. Now, I'm not going to get too medical or too bogged down with science and stuff, but it's all to do with your pH balance, and we've all got it in our bodies and things like that. So basically, you should always be in the middle. And again, I'm not trying to get too scientific. This is only my experience and what I've been told. But you should always be in the middle. So on one side, you've got acid, and then on the other side, you've got alkaline. So you should always try and be in the middle. I was all the way over here. And I thought, well, no wonder. No wonder I've been feeling so flipping ill this whole time. And it was all to do with acidosis, and my adrenal glands, in her words, were completely hammered. And I had you might have heard of this, cortisol levels, sky high. So that's why I had the fatigue for such a long time, because the acidosis combined with the adrenal fatigue, my body was running on empty. There was nothing in there. And that's why my body starts showing all these symptoms, to show that there's something seriously wrong. Anyway, I felt heard, I felt listened to, I felt validated, and I just felt like for the first time in 14 months, I could breathe. Because all that wondering what's going on, I'm being gaslit, I'm being told that everything's fine, they're looking at my bloods, according to them everything's fine, and they're healthcare professionals, so therefore what they say I should sort of listen to and things like that. No. So with this Ogden's appointment, it's changed my life, and I know that sounds dramatic, but I don't know how else to say it without sounding dramatic, because it is dramatic. It's changed my life. So anyway, so that was December 14th. So it was the second week of December when I had this appointment. And I just thought, knowing me, I'm going to wait until the 1st of January. So I took New Year, New Me extremely literal. So I started learning everything to do with acidosis, everything to do with adrenal fatigue. I took the opportunity to really learn about the nervous system, about cortisol, about your adrenal glands. And it was a real in-depth look at my body, what was going in, and just being more conscious about everything that I was putting in. So I got given a load of vitamins, supplements, and things like that. But Ogden's are very strong believers in natural health. So they believe in Chinese medicine, herbs, vegetables, everything and anything to do with natural. That's what they would recommend. So everything that I've been doing, it's not been made in a lab or it's chemical. It's none of that. So it's all completely natural. So it's what you should be having anyway. That was kind of the new year and that sort of thing. So I'm going to share in another video more to do with the acidosis and the adrenal fatigue, because this is more sort of my story and my journey of why I had the burnout and everything like that. So this was 1st of January, and literally, I'm not even joking when I say this, but it took about a month to 6 weeks before it was the fog started to lift, and that heaviness of the fatigue started to shift, and I just felt like my energy was all coming back. And this whole period of my life, I really do feel like it was the universe's way of saying to me, you need to start taking care of your health. And I think that this has been a massive lesson for me, just moving forward. And I know there's going to be people watching this thinking, Choffinelli's gone a bit too lally, like he's lost his marbles. But I really do believe in the universe now, and everything that I've gone through, I really do feel that this was all a lesson for me to just wake up, and just take care of my body and just be more alert and just in sync with everything that's going on around me, and to just stop constantly going all the time. And for what? So that's kind of like a little lesson that I've sort of taken from this whole experience. Now I'm going to start wrapping it up because this has been going on for quite some time, this video. But if you're going through burnout, fatigue, whatever it is that you're going through, you're feeling exhausted, or maybe I've sort of shared something, you're like, oh, that kind of resonates with how I'm sort of feeling at the minute. Do not ever give up hope. And I know that this is going to make me sound a little bit like preachy and, positivity, toxic positivity and all of that. And I know it's hard to absorb other people's information when you're not in a really good place, and that's certainly how I felt. But do not ever give up hope, because you absolutely will get through it. The only thing that I would say is you've got to keep fighting for yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. So for me, I knew that there was something wrong in my body, and I kept going. I saw 8 medical professionals, as I said earlier, and it was only finally when I went, not private, well, yeah, it is private, I suppose, but they're not linked to the NHS. It's like a separate, it's just their own business and stuff. It's only because I kept going, and, it was sort of a last resort for me that, I've got my answers. And I finally got what I was looking for this whole time. I got help. And all I would say to you is just keep looking at all your options, and don't just be tunnel focused and just completely sort of oblivious to anything else. And basically what I'm trying to say is don't just rely constantly on the NHS, because there could be other avenues that you could go down. And I do think that when it comes to your health, you can't fuck around. You can't. Now, all of this, it does take time. It does take patience. But the main overall thing is you just got to be kind to yourself. And I'm not going to do the whole be kind sort of thing, because I know that that's a bit much. But you've just got to really hang in there. Never give up hope. And just, honest to God, you will get through it. No matter what it is in your life that you're going through, you absolutely will get through it. But if you've enjoyed this video and you've stayed all the way to the end, thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos and content sort of around this whole journey and everything that I've sort of learned and things like that. So as I said earlier, if any of this has resonated with you, then hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up. But I really want to hear from you as well. So if there's anything that you have been going through, drop a comment and let's connect. But in the meantime, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.